Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm excited today. I know I said that every cast, but this is a serendipitous conversation. We had some very crazy events this past week in the United States of America. And as you know, we do open mics on Turmeric and Tequila. And I this was a gut-wrenching point where I was like, we got to pause and we have to talk about this and address it. And I really would love to have a person of color on for this conversation and someone that's close to the law. And sure enough, I was on my LinkedIn and Sivonnia, a new connection, I don't even know how we initially connected, was on there. She actually was posting a really nice compliment she had from another client. And I'm like, gosh, we're first connected. I wonder if she'll come on and have this conversation with me. And sure enough, she agreed. So without further ado, Sivonnia DeBarros, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It is such an honor. And like I said before, I love turmeric.
Dude, I hope you love tequila a little bit too, but turmeric is one of the best things you can consume. Let me tell
you, my favorite drink is a margarita, and it's made with what? Tequila.
Yes. See, and she's also, I'm going to read a little bit of bio here, but she's a D1 athlete, a lawyer. She's a child book, can I say author. Child book? Children's book author. But we're going to unpack so much of this because if you listen to Turmeric and Tequila, you'll know that these are points we talk about all the time. But here's Sivonnia's quick 411. She is the founder of S.L. DeBarros Law Firm, a boutique practice dedicated to serving our clients, their clients' interests through business, employment, and sports and entertainment. Through this practice, Sivonnia DeBarros has handled $1 million value cases, settled 5- and 6-figure cases for clients, and also helped clients get their lives back through successful trial wins. In July 2019, she published a children's book, JoJo's Legal Adventures, where she introduces bite-sized legal concepts for children. And she's got multiple books out. Like I said, D1 athlete. That's all I'm gonna say about you now, because I'm gonna let you talk about you from there.
Okay. So I'm just gonna correct you just a little bit. So
please do.
JoJo's Legal Adventures, and you guys can go to the website if you want to see the content that's coming out. But that is the brand that houses all of the books, the children's books for these kids. And the passion behind that is when I became pregnant, well, I'm a lawyer, of course, I wanted to start reading to my child. So I was talking to my baby while he was in the womb, finding little books that were so cute. I found this book series on, it's like technology and science, and it's so cute. And some of the books have like different little kids from different ethnic groups. And one of the kids actually looked almost just like my kid too. So by the time he was old enough to get up, see it, and recognize it, he actually pointed to the book and said, "That's JoJo." I'm like, "No, that's not JoJo."
Yes. Okay.
Right. So I wanted to read books about the law to my child. And in the midst of doing that and just seeing him around, but also being a woman of color from a Black community raised by Black parents, I am very much aware of how this country treats us. And I'm also very much aware of the ignorance that our people have when it comes to their legal rights. And so everything that I've done, and I don't even know why, but my passion for the law always comes up. It's always a point of conversation for people because I want you to be educated. And that doesn't mean that just because you didn't graduate high school or college that you're not. Some of the most smartest people out here probably didn't even, obtain a degree. They're just naturally smart. But when you fail to find the places in your life that lack, where you are not aware because of the lack of education, that's going to be a problem. So I wanted to fill that gap with my own kid. But the problem is we have to go back to the crux of why the Black and brown community is why we're so far behind. Why are we the majority of the people in this country who suffer a crazy percentage of incarcerations or death by police officers? Why? Because we don't know our own legal rights. And so JoJo's Legal Adventures, inspired by my little baby. So here's the first book, JoJo Learns About Credibility. So this was him pretty much kind of like at 10, 11 months old, I had them kind of build him up to look like he was 2 years old. But that was the first book, JoJo Learns About Credibility. And it was important for me to drop this book because we were in a few years now under the Trump presidency, and it showed how people who can occupy a high space of power, how their credibility was just not intact. And we tell children all the time, tell the truth. Yeah. You know, if you want a great outcome or you want something, you have to tell the truth, because otherwise no one will trust you. And it's the same thing that goes back to the law. When I am in trial or I'm interviewing a client to determine whether I want to take that case on, I'm looking at you, I'm evaluating you to see if you are actually credible. And if you're not, I can't deal with you. If I was to put you in front of a jury, they would see right through your crap, and your credibility would be the thing that kills the entire case. So that's a little bit about the children's book. The second book I recently dropped this year called JoJo Learns About Voting. So that one is just taking the voting nugget and getting kids excited about what that concept means and why their voice matters. I'm also the published author of What Are You Sporting About? So if you've seen or looked up my name somewhere, you've probably seen this brand everywhere, What Are You Sporting About? The brand was inspired by this book. I was terrified to write it, but when I wrote it, I just felt so great about it. And even in this book, I introduced legal issues because that is who I am. And I also represent 6- and 7-figure business owners, including athletes in business. It is my duty, like my passion, to make sure that my clients have all the tools in their arsenal to be successful in life. And part of that is ensuring that their business foundations are in place, but also understanding and knowing what your legal rights are.
I love that. I think, God, the athlete conversation is a whole thing in itself, because as you know, a competitive athlete, D1 or even amateur competitively, when you graduate and you don't go on professionally, you lose such a major sense of who you are. And that's a whole conversation in itself. And I have that conversation with athletes all the time. And I always love working with fellow athletes, because you get this very intense set of life skills early on: commitment, dedication, working with a team. And there's so many phenomenal things there. And that's why I love these conversations, whether it be the law or athletics, for our young humans, so they start to foster and develop these life skills really, really young. I don't think most people know the law until you're in a situation, and then you learn it as you're going through the system.
Right.
And I will fully admit it's a different conversation for white people and people of color. Mm-hmm. But I will say, for everybody, the system is also a business. So if you don't come correct with knowing what's going on, regardless of how you look, you don't know what's going on. And I've had to learn a few things the hard way, and I promise you, it's worth it. So I think it's incredible that you have these books for young humans to cultivate the conversation, to open up the doors for the parents to have the conversation. And you have some representation where you have children of color in books that quite literally look like your son, because they are. So I think that's amazing. And right on time. I mean, I know we, as in white humans, we're so late on so many things. And that's why I'm so grateful for conversations like this, because I don't know how we catch up or if we ever do, but I know that the learning and the listening has to continue. What was some of your first reaction? Well, actually, let me ask you this first. What was your initial passion to get into the law? Like, were your parents lawyers, or what was the initial step there?
Parents are not lawyers. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to digress just a little bit. My mom is a math and science person. That's all she's ever done. That's what she loves. Now she's a dean of a middle school down in my hometown in Gainesville, Florida. Shout out to my mom, Iris Bailey. But I had a conversation with her some years ago, and the neighborhood or the town's people were asking her to be the mayor. And I had a hard conversation with her. And I said, look, I know that this is not really how you think. She's never really liked history and law, stuff like that, more theoretical stuff. When I say math and science people, they are straight, and like mathematical equation, everything has to add up. Within the law, it doesn't. It just does not. But she was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know if I want to do it. And I told her, I said, look, Mom, if we want things to change, we have to be courageous enough to put ourselves in the positions where we can actually make the most change. This may not be a position that you would have ever seen yourself occupy, but if people actually believe and trust in you to occupy the space and a position that can create greater change. Yeah, our town is like so small, but still it's changed nonetheless, right? You don't know where those kids from those towns are gonna grow up and then they go off and occupy other spaces and what they're gonna do because of that, right? And so now my mom is the mayor and she's been retained. I think this is her second, what do you call it? Like second
term or something?
Term.
Yeah.
But anyway, what was your question?
Well, what was your initial path into getting be passionate? Like, why do I want to be a lawyer?
Yep. So none of my parents are lawyers at all. I don't come from a legal background. I remember having a conversation with my mom. I was so little, I was 4 or 5, and she asked me what I wanted to be. And I told her I wanted to be a lawyer. Now, fast forward some years later, I think I probably was in college, and we were having a conversation, and we were talking about that moment when I said that was what I wanted to do and be. And she stated to me, she couldn't understand how basically this baby could think of being an attorney. Like, that's a big thing. Where did she see that? But she was not going to tell me that I couldn't do that. So she said she just shut her mouth and she said, okay. Okay. You know, and through my entire life, I've never heard anyone say, you can't be a lawyer. I've never heard anyone say that. So I call myself first generation lawyer. I'm the first lawyer in my family on all sides that I believe. First lawyer in my family, first lawyer to actually own a law practice. And it's hard. You know, going back to one of the things you said before, when you don't have representation, you absolutely don't know how certain things are supposed to look or supposed to be. And it's hard. You know, even you as a white woman from, you know, the majority race in this country, there are things that you're probably going to embark on where there may not be a representation for, but you've had to figure out that path for yourself so that you can be successful. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So just the burning fire and gift and purpose within me that actually put me on this path to actually being a lawyer.
I love it. I always, and myself included, I always say, go back to your young self and remember when you're unbiased by the world, your parents, any influence, like your little authentic self, when you have your hopes and dreams, that it's just what it is. Like, I really think we are who we are at a very young age, and we know so many things, and that starts to dilute as we get older because, you know, environment and whatever.
We started listening to too many people. It's so funny because I just did an episode on this yesterday where the first chapter in what he's pointing about is the dreamer, because we're so caught up on trying to heal our inner child that we forget to celebrate the wins that our inner child gave us. My inner child told me I could be a lawyer because as children, we're not afraid to dream, you know, and the bigger the dream is, the better. But so often we listen to those outside people in the outside environments and all the folks that are around us that are not doing the things that they probably should be. And so we start seeing and putting ourselves in the same boxes. Like, we can't achieve those things. And it's not true.
Well, and then it builds into this whole cycle of unhappiness and like hurt people. So now you're influencing and you're killing other people's dreams. And it's like this whole situation. And it's remarkable. Like, the older you get, the more like evolved and smarter and educated. And yet all you got to do is get back to that young, unbiased self. It just,
I know, isn't it something?
You know,
it's
a lot of money. But I liked what you said. It doesn't really matter who you are, how you look like. I will, of course, acknowledge it. It's very different conversations for how you look.
Yeah.
But my initial passion for inequality was because I was the oldest of 4 and I was the only female. And I saw
I'm the oldest of 4.
Oh yeah, it's a whole tribe of humans. It's, God bless my parents. That's a lot of humans. But everything was like, the boys do this and the girl does this. And my parents were very like encouraging, like yours, like everything was positive. But society, I saw it. Like, I remember being at the dinner table, and I've talked to this cast before, where my grandfather was like, "Oh, professional baseball." Keep in mind, I didn't even play baseball or softball, none of it. He's like, "Oh, the boys can do this. And they can make millions of dollars." And I was like, "Well, I can do that." And I just remember in my mind being like, who's this to tell me what and I don't know that. So this was my very early on passion of like inequality. And then you magnify that for race and gender combined. I mean, there's just, so that's my little identifying like factor of like, we got to change this. And then, like I said, it magnifies as you change the conversation. But I do think it's important for everyone to understand that it's, no matter who you are, there are these challenges and these conversations just have to continue.
Yes.
So as things were breaking out, I believe it was Wednesday, the Capitol was under siege by a mob of Trump supporters. And even in the Republicans, I've talked about this. I wouldn't even say that's a fair representation of Republicans. I think these are just people's and they cannot be called protesters. It's domestic terrorism. I want to be very clear in that language. And I will say I've been proud of our news media for being very clear in using those terms.
Right.
We never know which way they're going to go. Some, yes, facts. You never know which way, and depending on what network you're watching on, and
Right.
But what were some of your initial reactions, or where were you when this started to break out?
Well, I was home because of COVID, so I tried to minimize the outings that I have. So I was home. I was actually on Wednesday. I was actually working in the kitchen. So I was sitting at the island, and the news was just on. And I was just working from there all day. And I saw everything come on. I was like, that's pretty weird. So I just stopped and I'm watching the news and I said, okay. And I just kept, shaking my head like, okay. It was something that it didn't enrage me because I already knew it was going to happen. It already has happened. It's happened a long time ago, in fact, and no one put any measures in place. No one said anything really about the attack on Michigan. When everyone stormed the Capitol there with guns in tow, it was already stated. But for me as a Black woman, I know how I feel when things happen. I have experienced discrimination, racism, so many times that Black people can't get the recognition of the double-sided face of America because some things it's impossible to put it in words. You can feel it, you can sense it, we can even see it. But when you say, well, how is that racist? Some stuff you just can't articulate because it's so interwoven into this country. You really have to you would have to grow up that way to really be able to understand the perspective that people of color are coming from. And our laws, unfortunately, are also presented the exact same way. Part of my civil rights representation for people is through employment law. A lot of people have come to me because they have been either terminated or suffer some type of what we call adverse possession, where maybe there's a demotion or cutting wages because of who they are, disability, race, gender, sexuality. And before, sexual orientation wasn't a particular piece to discrimination laws, the Civil Rights Act. It wasn't at first. I think that's like now maybe 2 years old in the making. But people have been experiencing this type of discrimination for so long. But what happened on Wednesday showed us exactly. Now I'm going to say this. It didn't show me anything. It only just basically put the cherry on top.
That's
Everybody else who live every day in their privilege, who decide to turn a blind eye on what America is really about because they are armored by that particular privilege. This was the thing to say, you can't ignore this. And they shouldn't have ignored it when they attacked Michigan, right? So
they had a group that was it wasn't the mayor. I can't remember. It's a female.
I think it was the mayor.
Was it the mayor? And they captured a group that was going to go, had plot to go assassinate her.
To kill her. Yeah. I mean, that in itself is ridiculous. And you guys, let me tell you something. Trump started his presidency and ended it the exact same way. Okay, with chaos, with disruption, and not positive disruption. I can understand someone who does not fit the mold, who want to come and disrupt what politics is all about to make something greater and better for the American people at large. But since his commencement into office, his only talks have been about one particular group of people. And even then, I mean, if we're talking about white people at large, come on, there's white people in so many different social economic statuses that some of the stuff he even say doesn't even protect some of those people. He's never thought about how repealing the Obama Act will impact even his people. Some of the poorest people in this country are white people. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and And Affordable Care Act is one of the things where even your people can get health care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so this man only cares about, I'm going to be real, he only cares about one person. Even the things he say, the incitement that he makes for his base, it seems as though to them that he cares about them, but all he's doing is creating an army of people to support his own individualized interests. And that's not what America is supposed to be about. But unfortunately, this is America. This is how America began, by stealing my ancestors from their homeland, by building this country on our backs, by, building this country for free through us. And then when we are allowed to be free, imprisoning us and causing us to work more without anything, taking our men from us, splitting up our families. This is who America has always been. And until people get on board with that, then something real may possibly be able to change.
Yeah. I very well said. I think that when I was watching it as a white privileged human, safe in my home, and I agree with you. I no part of me was surprised. I felt just a deep sadness. This is what it had to come to for us to really wake up and see what's alive and well and living. And we just did our year in review cast, and you saw these white males, Epstein, Weinstein, Roger Ailes, these big guys, good old boy club, where everything just went, and it was kind of like a house of cards. And this disruption, these themes are happening all over, and it's taking this major breakthrough for this final, this pivotal point to finally happen in this awareness, where I do think some people know what's going on and they don't know what to do, but the majority, we live in our little myopic space and we don't know what's going on. So it does take this. And my point of actual just fear was all these humans are unscreened, and this is a gun-toting population. So full, and our senators are in there, and people they're just trying to do their damn job. And and this is a chaotic group, and I wouldn't even stereotype them as Republicans, although obviously that's how they identify in their Trump supporters. But what I see when I saw that whole thing, I was like, God, don't they understand? They are literally a used, brainwashed human shield for this one individual that is, it was like a bad theme party. You see the wolf head thing or the horns and face paint. I'm like, are you trying to be Braveheart? And then anytime as I've grown up, and you try and get through conflict resolution, and you before you go to execute a conversation, it's what are the desired results? And I was thinking of this, I'm like, what are these humans' desired result of this? Blow the place up, the votes go through anyways, you have this mass destruction, you go kill people, you destroy all these sacred things of our nation, which the history week, that's a whole other podcast, but insert eye roll. I mean, it's just crazy, how this can be and I will say this, it was some boss ass move for them to go back and finish. Of course, it didn't change things. We just, here we are to waste time, but they got it done. And at least they made a statement, because the rest of the world, they were tapping in being like, America, WTF, what is going on? And we're the most powerful, I'm doing air quotes if you can't see us, nation in the world. So
people love to say America is the greatest country. I beg to differ.
Yeah. What is great? Who, what does that even mean?
I mean, when you build a country out of the blood, sweat, and tears of a nation, of a continent, okay, with different people, of their people, how is it the greatest country? You understand what I'm saying? Because Black people still have not been given the recognition that we deserve, period, point blank. Now, going back to what you were saying about what the desired end result would be, this is what happened Wednesday, is the epitome of people who do not know who they are, okay, on every level. Every level. When you do not know who you are, you will be more than willing to follow anything and anybody. I grew up in a spiritual family, and we call it false prophets, right? So anybody can present themselves as let's just kind of turn into biblical really quick. People can present themselves as leaders of God, and they'll preach all kind of stuff to you. But if you are not finding who you are as an individual, you will not have the discernment to really understand, is this the right person for me to follow? Because everyone is not equipped to lead just because they may be in a position of leadership. They are not equipped to lead. Now, one of the things that Trump should have been asking himself prior to occupying the White House was, what is the legacy I want to leave from this presidency? How do I want the American people to think about me? How do I want the rest of the world to view me when they read the history books years from now to think about what my presidency did? In my opinion, in the presidents that I've been old enough to experience, he is the worst president in American history ever.
I mean, come on. I like you said, I don't know if cherry on top is the right metaphor, but it's like it was the fireball on top of the firestorm, or I don't know what it, but it's the exclamation point to exactly what you just said, to like, is this real? Like
it's ridiculous.
How do we even get to this point? Like, most powerful, greatest, however you brand it as a branding professional, go ahead. It's smoke and mirrors. This is why we started Turmeric and Tequila, because I can help, decorate anything, but we're not changing the product or substance or whatever. The truth is still the truth. Yeah. It's remarkable. Like, you have to really see how many of all the wrong things had to go just right, so this would be exactly where we're at. Yeah. And I really, knock on wood, I think I seriously agree with you. I think I pray this is the pivotal point. And I see our young humans and their ability, social media, we can argue is good and bad always, but their access to knowledge, their ability to question a better way so much earlier. And just like you said, their ability to foster their truths and get to know themselves and not give away their values so easily. Yep. I do think we will see some of these things evolve out. I hope. Oh, yeah. I hope.
I hope so too. But it's the sad part about all of this is that we actually have not moved the needle. Yeah. This is my opinion. I don't think we've moved the needle. Have we advanced? Yes. But in terms of race and racism and social justice and equality in this country, we have not moved the needle. We have a group of Black people protesting for social justice, for a yearning for respect and equality, so that our Black women and our Black men are just not killed and maimed for nothing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And we get branded as thugs. With our protests, we have the entire army waiting for us. But on Wednesday, what we saw was that this mob of white Trump supporters who have already shown and exhibited how far they are willing to go to injure someone. To even threaten a public official, and no one was prepared for that. Yeah. It really shows the two-sided face of America. And unfortunately, there are children who are coming from those individuals. And if those children are incapable of growing up with their own mind and being able to set what standard is right for them, we will have another generation of children. Why do you think we're still at this point right now? Because the old men from slavery days, guess what? They're teaching their children, their grandchildren, this is how you're supposed to be. And guess what? They go out into the world and they what's the word? They put that type of conduct back into our communities. Yeah. They recycle, that's the word. They recycle that type of conduct and behavior over and over again to suppress another race for nothing. So my question is, why are you scared? Yeah. If you were that scared of us, why didn't you leave us where you found us? Yeah. Because Black and brown people, I will say, are some of the most hardest working, dedicated individuals in this country. Do we have problems just like some other people? Absolutely. But if the reason why we're constantly being murdered by the police or being basically given death sentence by judges who shouldn't even be on the stand is because you guys are afraid of us, then you need to check your own self. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. everybody, like you said, that systemic play where it goes through, and then it's not only happening in your household, like nurture versus nature, like your environment, especially as a young human, that is what's defining your reality. So if your reality, if your parents are out there ironing their sheets for the KKK meeting, that's normal to you. And then so that's you grow up and you see that. And I think that's a very hard cycle to break. And again, with social media and like kids like infiltrating schools, and as we become more of a melting pot, as slow as it is, I do think there are humans being like, this cannot be right. Like, this is my best friend and my family's telling me to hate them because of skin color or religious beliefs.
That's the empathy component. Me as a black woman, I've always had different friends of various ethnic groups. Going to college was even better because I met so many different people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm able to meet all kinds of people over the world. And as I've grown and been able to travel, which I can't wait to get back to, you know, I love meeting different people. They teach you different things about life. They provide another set of values that you can add to the value set that you already have. But if you stay, and we know this because a lot of those Trump supporters, we can say are just backwoods, country white people who ain't seen nothing but what has been put in front of them. I mean, let's be real.
Dude, as a white person, I'm like, damn, that's how we look? Like, for real? I promise you I can read books. Like, this is...
Think about, okay, and you're saying that as a white woman for this mob that just happened. Think about the years and years of stereotypes that have been created about Black people.
I hear you.
How dangerous we are, how dangerous our men are. I mean, the cops can kill a little Black boy in the park for playing with a toy gun. No one is convicted, brought to justice for that, right? But we're considered at large to be a very dangerous ethnic group here in this country, regardless of how we've helped build up this country and continue to do so. You know what I'm saying? So think about that from your perspective. Dang, this is how we look.
I mean, as much I've genuinely taken time to think about that, and as much as close as I can get to understanding, which I know I never fully will, I think about it. It's mind blowing. This deep misrepresentation, like this stigma that just exists. And I mean, professionally as a branding person, like this is what we deal with brands, and like clearly it's not truly comparable, but just as like a lighthearted metaphor, like it's really hard to disrupt that and change it. I did watch Dateline last night. They did a phenomenal story with the three families of George Floyd. Oh my gosh, I'm
Breonna Taylor, maybe.
No, it wasn't Breonna Taylor. George Garland. I think it was the G.
Garland?
And I'm drawing a complete blank. They had the three families on, and it was one that was the person that was killed like 4 or 5 years ago, and his grandmother had started the movement, so they connected, and she kind of like helped them coach through this process. It was horrifying to hear. I love that it was on mainstream news. So again, so mainstream America can really start to see a different perspective. I do think those main media points really will be the point to open things up. And even that is largely questionable.
Because then the thing is, it may be in a large stream media, but then do you have the interest to watch it?
True. But we were seeing it more and more. So like, I think the more it's out there and infiltrating those conversations, you have less and less choice to like keep avoiding it if you don't want to. And the thing is, there's always going to be people that are never going to change. That's
correct.
You know, and unfortunately we just have to keep the guns and the power away from them. So, you know, so they're not leading and like breeding more of those humans. What were, you know, as a parent and like TV and like that stuff that's coming on, I was also thinking like, man, what would I say to my kids? I don't have children. I have 3 dogs that run my world. But what were some of these conversations with your son?
I haven't, because he's only 3. He doesn't understand.
Okay.
And the beauty, you know, when this was on the TV, and I'm just watching him because he has no care in the world at this age. He, you know, he's just sitting doing his little thing and playing with his Play-Doh that he got for Christmas and just in his own world. And I look at him and I'm like, you don't even know. You don't even know the half, because this will be a conversation I will have to have with him, is how the world treats a Black boy. And to be honest, my husband, my son, they are not just all Black. They are Portuguese. You know what I'm saying? They are African. They are different things, but because of their complexion, America has said that they are Black, and that's exactly how they're going to be treated, you know? It doesn't matter how light our skin is. If you are Black in America, there are conversations that you have to have. And so I am preparing myself with having to have that conversation. Luckily, I can have that conversation with my husband to talk with him about it, but still there is, my husband wasn't born in this country, okay? For most of his life, he has been here, but still he was not born in this country. So even with that, there's gonna be some gaps that we have to fill in, you know, for our son, and bring my mom and my stepfather and people that we trust to constantly pour into him and to support him and give him the tools that he needs to be successful in this country. But I will say, I had a conversation with my nephew, Razi, and in this book, this character is two characters of incredibility. This character here, yeah.
You got it, yeah.
Yeah, he was inspired by my nephew, Razi. Razi is half Cuban, half Black. So fair. I don't think the boy gonna ever get dark. Ever. But I had a conversation with him. This was a few months ago, actually. And I was in Florida at the time. A situation had happened in school with him, I think maybe a month or two previous to that, where I think he got either suspended or kicked out of school. He's still in elementary because someone claimed that he was gonna bring a knife to school. And so, yeah, and this is my baby, okay? Mm-hmm. He calls me Auntie Bonnie. He know Auntie Bonnie loves him 100%. And I sat him down, I said, listen, what exactly happened at school? And he told me, he said, well, and he's so smart. He said, well, a kid asked me, like, or the teacher, I can't remember who, but like, how would I feel if something happened? I can't even remember what the conversation was, but the way he described it to me, you know, it was like he was answering someone's question of what would be horrible or wrong. And then that was all flipped around, but the person he was having a conversation with was white. I said, so what happened to the little white boy? He said, I don't know. And I told him, I said, listen, no matter how light your skin is, you are still a Black boy in this country. You cannot live by the same rules that they can live by. I had to have this conversation with my little nephew, okay? And I told him, I said, now you have to suffer the consequences just because of the color of your skin. You had to go to a different school because of that. You have to be mindful of what you say and how it will be perceived by other people, because you as a Black boy are considered a dangerous person. Your color is dangerous to other people who don't look like you, you know? And I asked him, I said, do you understand? And he said, yes, ma'am. I said, okay, I don't want to see or hear anything else about any other, you know, other issues. But the sad thing is that he can't, children, I mean, the older they get, yeah, they learn how to lie. But in the grand scheme of things, children are so honest, they don't really lie. I mean, you ask them a question, they're gonna give you the real, but then you persecute them just because of who they are based on the question that you asked. It's unfair, but that's something that we learn early on, and we have to continue to live with that throughout our lives. So that's part of the conversation I've had with a Black child, not mine, of course, at this point, but I mean, the conversations are getting deeper and harder. I mean, Black kids who are traveling, I always tell my nephews, my older nephews, like, be careful. Yeah. I don't know if you're gonna get pulled over, you know?
Yeah. We were driving back. I graduated college, is totally gonna date me, but in 2004, and we were moving my stuff I went to George Mason University back to Colorado, and we were in, I don't even know, like the woods of Virginia or something. And thank God my brother was with me, and I was driving a trailer. Anyways, I hit the toll booth and popped the tire. Like, we're like 20 miles in. It was ridiculous. Anyways, we pulled over and it was dark out because we got a late start. And the guy that came over, came to the car, is like, yeah, you can't do anything, racial slurs, backwoods. And all I was thinking is, I thank God my brother's here. And I'm a white human, like and this is, I mean,
by yourself.
Yeah, by myself as a female. I couldn't imagine if I was a person of color, like, and this is me driving from my college. It's right outside of DC, where it's very progressive. And George Mason is like genuinely won the award for one of the most diverse schools in the nation. Wow. So my reality was slipped in college, which was wonderful. And then immediately, like it's probably like 100 miles away, was this immediate experience of, here's the real world. Like, here's what's really going on. And I was like, God, this is like, you're like one situation away from your entire world pivoting.
Just changing.
Yeah. And it's
changing in an instant.
Yeah. It's scary. I just want to say it's like, it makes your footing just so unsure. And there's just like such a lack of security. So I can't imagine what it's like for anyone that doesn't look like me. Like
I live on edge every day, not in the sense that I'll be killed or mobbed by white people, but I live on edge and I stress myself out. I know it's ridiculous, but of not accomplishing things that I want to accomplish because I just don't know. I don't know what will happen to me. Will I be another Sandra Bland? You know, when I was in college in Tampa, I left school one day. They're going the same route. Didn't grow up in Tampa, so I take the same route because I don't want to get lost. And back then, I didn't really have like a cell phone where you got a full data plan. You can jump on the phone anytime, right?
You got MapQuest printouts. Yeah.
Right. It was paid, I think, like paying for your plans or something like that. I'm driving home the exact same way from my class, and all these cars in front of me, they're going the exact same way, and then I get stopped. And the cop comes to my window and tell me that I should be driving through this road. And I've always taught that, because if something don't look right, it just don't damn look right. You know what I'm saying? And I remember asking, why shouldn't I drive this way? All the other cars have gone and you've allowed them to go past, you know, oh, this is a crime scene. I said, well, if it's a crime scene, why don't you have any cones put out? So then I was flagged to go into another area. I was able to call a friend really, really quick. And I said, look, I don't know what's about to happen, but this is where I am.
Yeah.
It's a Black guy friend. And by the time he got there, I was already in the back of the police car because I wasn't taking none of their stuff. Yeah. Okay. I was in the back of the police car. And I remember saying there was a white female officer and there was also a white male officer. But I remember telling him, because he was trying to intimidate me. And he was like, well, if you don't shut up, I'm going to take you to jail right now. And when he put me in the car, I said, I want to see you get out of this with the court to tell them why you had probable cause to arrest me. But see, that was me. I wasn't even in law school yet, but that was me who was always interested in knowing what my legal rights were, right? Because if you have an accident scene, you put up cones, you block off the space, you redirect traffic. You don't let all these other cars go. And at this point, I'm gonna only assume that they're white. So you're giving them the opportunity to pass, you know, but then you get little old Black girl me, and now there's a huge problem.
Yeah.
I don't know what other route to take. I'm just driving home. But that could have turned into something completely different. He let me go.
Okay.
You know, and I was able to go back home. But I was so shaken from that moment. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And there are other stories that I have. I mean, I've seen a cousin beat down by the cops. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot. But these stories are not, they're not isolated for Black people.
Yeah.
You know, thankfully, I can say that I'm here to tell the tale, and that the cousin I seen that was beat down is still alive. Thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think telling the tale, it's certainly not anyone's responsibility, but I do think when you are willing and open to it, I think it is so important for people to hear and take note of what's going on and really try to understand. Last night in that Dateline episode, they talked about how, you know, all of a sudden Felonious is in the spot to like be on the mic. Here he is. He just lost his brother in the most unjust situation you've ever seen. And now he has to like step to the mic and approach Congress. And he had to come into this role. And I just applaud him so much for taking that on when you're broken, you're hurting, and it's not your job. This is not this shouldn't be, this is not a situation you chose. And now you have to be the voice of something like, that's shitty. Like who, and I mean, you're grieving. So, you know, and they showed some of his testimony, and I don't know, I just really applauded him as a human for stepping into that. And it's not like he's a lawyer by trade. Like you're not equipped with some of these skills. So I don't know. I applaud anyone that does take the time to share these. Like I truly do believe it is impactful, and that is the right step into change. Even every time I get someone to say yes to come on to Turmeric and Tequila, particularly when it's an open mic, we don't know each other, even though there's a shitload in common, we don't look the same. And for someone to come on and take time out of their day, particularly a varsity busy human like yourself, to talk about this, that in itself just restores a little bit of hope and humanity for me. and these small little things. There's so much to be done. And there's so much to be lost in from my perspective. These little things, I'm like, maybe there's a way.
Yeah, but we need more people like you. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a podcast just to talk to Black people. I mean, we're everywhere. We're everywhere, you know, but it's going to take people getting from behind that shield of privilegedness to step out into the field of uncomfortableness, to have the conversations that don't feel good, to say, what is it about my white privilege that have kept me in a situation where I'm unable to help a group that is so important in this country? Because I'm gonna be real, until Black people receive the respect and the opportunities and the resources and the same justice that white people have in this country, no other racial group will be able to rest. No other group will be. They have to start with us.
Do you have faith in the future and specifically in Biden and Kamala and what's to come?
I have faith in them that they will actually do better than Trump. But
okay. I mean, I hope so. Holy shit.
I know, right? But the problem is it's bigger than them. It's gonna take more than 4 years. If they have 2 terms, it's gonna take more than 8 years to fix. I mean, everything that I thought that we were working up towards have completely, I mean, it's just done a whole 180. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I have faith on one end that they can do it, but it's gonna take more people to take the torch and say, look, I wanna actually step in and be the change as well. And that also means having people on board who don't look like us, who realize that there is a real issue in this country. It is time to stop sweeping this stuff under the rug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and for all the other racial groups who think that they can just skirt by without having to jump on board for our fight, like, you have to join the fight, because if you don't, you will not be able to rest. And one thing I don't understand is why Black people constantly run to the aid of other racial groups when no one else is there to back and support us. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, well, unpack that a little bit, because I don't think that's something that I've seen, probably naively so, as a white human. Tell me a little bit about that.
I feel that because when you see Muslims berated as terrorists in this country, or Asians mistreated, or Hispanics mistreated, Black people are always there saying, nah, that's not cool. You can't treat them that way. We're coming to their aid. Even if you go on social media and you see people being mistreated by, you know, let's just say some white person doing something to an Asian girl or something like that. There's always someone Black to come to their aid. But when we're down, there's no one coming to our aid. You know what I mean? Like, we need more white people for police stops, for things that's happening in stores where people are using their white privilege to feel like they can do and say and treat us all kind of ways, to step up to the plate and say, nah, no, I know that he or she may not look like me, but they're still my sister and brother, and you cannot treat them that way. We need more white people to step from behind their privilege. We need more people of color who are not Black to step to our aid and join the fight and say, Black people need their opportunity. They need the respect. And once Black people receive that respect and those opportunities and that particular, the justice and equality that we've been fighting for so long, every other ethnic group will receive it. Take this for instance. Why in the world, COVID-19 has been the perfect storm, right? Because it put everybody in their seat. Black Lives Matter got huge, all right? A lot of protests got a lot of media attention. But it was only until the social inequality of Black people being brought to a heightened standard like that in America that now, oh, they want to change the Redskins. Well, haven't Redskins been?
Yeah. Oh, well, the business side, to me, I think the second we started to see disruption in the dollar, that's why I'm very passionate about obviously teaching our young humans, and second, really teaching our consumers, which is everyone, how to consume and vote with your dollar. Because I think that's almost, I can't say more important, but equally as important is actually voting. Yeah. Because you disrupt the money, you disrupt the chain of command. And it is what it is.
But this country, unfortunately, have put Black people in a situation where our money more than any other community circulates within it. Let me back up. Our dollar, I think, only circulates one time in our community, and then it's out to everybody else's community. When we built our own communities and had Black Wall Street, for example, but communities that were of color and thriving, and we had our own money and the dollar circulated so many times before it went out, guess what happened? White people didn't like that because they wanted our money. So they put something in place to keep us down, to be able to take our dollars, and guess what? Our dollars make them more powerful. I'm probably one of the only people, well, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I will boycott something in a quickness, okay? If I know that my dollars are going to something that I don't support, I'm done. And my husband, he was like, damn, I got to put this on the list too. Yep.
I'm 100% with you. Once I read a company, because I'm about the humans, I mean, that's what I do for a living. So once I know about the humans behind the company, I don't care. I don't care that much about anything. Like there's another brand for something else. Like I don't, there in the principle there is, I can't even do it. So no, I'm 100% there with you. Like the second something's noted, even if the human's just rude, or I just don't like the vibe. I just watched Ford versus Ferrari and I'm like, why did Ford approve this movie? Like, this isn't even race, but like, this makes Ford look like an asshole. Like I don't want to drive a Ford now. Like if I'm being honest, like, I don't know. To me, those things stick.
Yeah.
Any piece of it.
Yep. So, but it's going to cost us, it's going to, as a Black community, we have to, first off, step out and courage, build our communities back, and find ways to circulate our dollars in our communities. So building our own businesses, finding other Black-owned businesses that we can reinvest in. Because if we're so willing to put our dollars elsewhere, we will never be able to use our money for power. We will never be able to really have a say because we wouldn't have the dollars.
Right.
Right. You're right on the money.
It has, I mean, there's less Black dollars being spent in Black businesses because there's less Black businesses. So it's like, I mean, it's a cycle. It's like the chicken and the egg. We have to have each piece progressing. Otherwise the whole thing doesn't progress. And
there's less bigger businesses that's willing to reinvest into Black businesses.
Yes.
Because I think there's a ton of entrepreneurs who are out there building different brands, but guess what? Black people are still on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to having investors look into their businesses or reinvest into their businesses. So that's what I'm saying, like the social equality or justice across the board. I'm not just talking about with police brutality or with politics or anything like that, but housing, social economic issues, business resources in your community, housing. All of this stuff is a part of equality, and we still don't receive a lot of the dollars that can help our communities to build. And the only question I can ask is why? Because we're out there. We are definitely out there.
Yeah. I've seen it firsthand with loans, and like you can't get a loan for even as a female, let alone a female of color. Like I mean, I've seen that very firsthand. But again, when I see like the Roger Ailes and the Epsteins and all these guys, like these are the ones that are controlling a lot of the chips, like the minority, like meaning rich white men are controlling a lot of the rules right now. But I see when this disruption happening and like our COVID's happening, like everything's kind of erupting. I really do have faith that like the system is shaken. And do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. I just think now that we've had these pivotal breakdowns, I do have faith that the breakthrough will begin. It has to. Like, I mean, these points of power are disrupted. So maybe it's something I want to believe in, and I'll be the first that I'm a dreamer at heart. But
let me just say this. I mean, and you probably heard this somewhere else, but when you're so far down, the only way you can go is up. I mean, we look like total fools to the rest of the world right now. So the only way you can go is up. I mean, there will not be change overnight. And the negative disruption that Trump has created, he took 4 years to do that. It's not gonna happen I don't think it'll happen in one term with Biden and Kamala.
Sure.
Can we get somewhat back on track to where I thought things were going? Maybe. But now it's, I don't know, man. People are hurt. Like when I say hurt, here's my thing, because I live in a white suburban neighborhood. When Black Lives Matter and all that stuff was popping on the news, we don't do nothing to these people out here. But someone came and vandalized our garage doors.
What'd they do? Like
they egged like our house. Yeah.
People still do that?
Yeah, we were walking the neighborhood, and I remember looking at all the other neighbors' doors and their house to see, because I know kids, play pranks or whatever. And nobody else's house was vandalized. I mean, we don't hide ourselves. We are who we are, and we are the only Black family in this neighborhood. But I was so pissed off. And I know it's eggs. And people may say, well, why are you mad about eggs? I mean, you can clean eggs off. That's
the principle. Yeah.
My thing is, what are you going to come back with next? Will it be guns? Will you try to hurt my family? Yeah. Because then we're going to have a problem. I think at this point, and this right here is the icing and the cherry on the cake, because the Black community has already been injured. Too many Black people continue to be killed by white folk without justification, cops without justification, and then you do something else to exhibit your hatred for me, and you don't even know me. I never did anything to you. And so there's so much pain and hurt that is already out there, right? Even if white people come and say, look, we're on your team, well, now we need you to really illustrate what your dedication is. What is it that you understand about your white privilege? Why are you willing to take the risk and move from behind the white privilege? Because no matter how much you say that you're ready to do and you're able to be on our team, there's still a level of privilege that you have when you go places that, and it's not your fault that you were born the way that you were. But you're gonna have a privilege that we just don't have. And the problem is, are you willing to tell people, don't give me that privilege? I know I look this way, but don't give me that privilege, because I stand on this value. I stand on this standard. This is what I believe in, but it's so much pain there, because I'm telling you, once my house was egged, I screamed so loud, like I made a ruckus in this neighborhood because I wanted every damn body to hear me. Like, don't forgive me for cursing, but
no, turmeric and tequila, it's all fake. Do you guys like, in my neighborhood, I'm in Denver, and I'm blessed for how progressive it is. Like, there's tons of Black Lives Matter. There's tons of things that say like "Bye Dawn" for Biden, but it's like so my neighborhood is amazing like that, I will say. But we're in like the heart of North Denver, so it's been diverse forever. Gentrification's obviously alive and well and happening. However, we have this thing like called Next Door, so you can alert neighborhood everything. I mean, and I think those. Yeah, people kind of, some of it can get a little too much, like my dog ran out, or who can buy eggs, or it's a lot. Some people have a lot of time. But do you have something like that where it's like, this is happening and like, this is how I feel, and I feel like this was a racially motivated, I hate to say hate crime, but it is like, that's against the law.
It is. And the thing about it is the timing of it, where I knew, and the bells in me, the red flags in me were just going off. I'm like, yeah, this ain't, Yeah, I knew that's what it was. But even as a black woman now living in a white neighborhood and having that experience, I don't feel safe in my house all the time. There have been cars that will come and just park and not visiting you and not leaving. And I'm calling the cops. And I know they're tired of coming out here, because I'm like, look, I don't know what's happening. So people have this guise in America that we're the dangerous ones, that we are going to harm somebody or do something. My husband's a big, tall, dark dude, okay? I don't even know how big my son may get, because it seems like both sides of my family, the men are just huge, okay? But will his darkness, his blackness, his height be a danger to him just because of who he is?
Yeah.
Maybe.
But dude, in 2021, any car parked out in front of your house and wherever you are, that's a red flag. Like, we don't do that. Like, you don't do that.
Let me tell you, I called the cops so fast, and the lady was like, oh, well, we can't make the move. I said, let me tell you something.
I love that you're a lawyer. Just shake them down.
the cops. I said, let me tell you something. Somebody need to come out here right now and talk to these people and figure out what they're doing here, because they were parked in between my house and my neighbors. Now, my neighbors are Polish or Russian or something, but they got two little boys.
Yeah.
And they're parked right in between both of our houses. And I'm like, I haven't seen these people get out the car to go in nobody's house. So I don't know what they're doing. And I understand you can't make people move off of a public street, but right now this is making me feel uneasy. Yeah. Okay, and so then they came and the people, they left. But we got to get from thinking that only, and I'm not saying you, but just generally in this country, that the only people who creates a threat are Black people. That's just not true.
That came up on Dateline last night. I'll look up. I'm literally drawing a blanket. I just watched it. But one of the sisters of the fallen victims said, you know, they think we are the armed, dangerous ones, when actually the white officers are the armed and dangerous ones. And I don't even like to categorize all officers, but how do you know who's good and bad? Like, how do you differentiate that? I have a ton of phenomenal cop friends, phenomenal. And I speak very highly of all races and genders.
I have family of cops.
Yeah. And
they're Black.
Yeah, it's a hard combo, man. But I don't know. For anyone that's listening, I'm blessed to actually have a multitude of friends of color, and some of them are my absolute best friends. And I've seen them have to deal with some of this process, and I've seen different approaches. One chose therapy, which has honestly been phenomenal for me, because I get all these nuggets when we talk about it from her therapist. Like, what are some of these coping mechanisms that you do as you navigate through this space?
I'm gonna tell you something. Like, first off, I haven't done therapy on the sense of the justice issues, right? But during COVID-19, when George Floyd was killed, that was my moment where I realized I had been holding so much in. And my coping had always been going to work, doing whatever it is to take my mind off of the things that just hurt me or made me feel uncomfortable. In that situation, I was crying. I could not hold it anymore. I don't know George Floyd. I don't know his family, but looking at his family, I can see myself. I can see my own family, and experiencing this stuff over and over and over again, it becomes so much. And I think for people of color, there is a I think we have some trauma there, because especially as children, if you see certain things in your life, you may not go on to actually recycle that kind of behavior, what you saw, right? But that stuff stays in you. And I didn't realize until that moment how much that stuff stayed in me, right? But one thing that I am looking into, actually, because I lost a very important person in my life, November 2nd, my grandmother. Thankfully not no police or social issues, but still lost her. I'm looking into grief counseling, because when the perfect storm happens, the perfect storm really, really happens. And counseling is a great thing, a good mechanism, a tool that people need, because you're able to reach in and unpack everything. Yeah. Why was I holding on to all of that? I'm gonna just call it Black trauma. I don't even know. I don't know where it started. And the only thing that's gonna help me unpack that is some kind of counseling.
I applaud that. I think I do a lot because of sports and branding, like with human optimization type stuff. And there is such a stigma around counseling. And I have noticed this,
it is
particularly around Black and brown communities. And I mean, I'm white, so I don't normally see that, but there's stigma around therapy in general. But as an athlete, you find a coach to get better. You don't just walk on the field and be like, I'm gonna be better today. Like, it's in my world a lot, so it's more normalized to me. But therapy, any money I've ever spent on coaching or life counseling or whatever, best money I've ever spent in my life, and best time and energy I've spent, because even as evolved humans and educated and in touch, what have you, there's always places of trauma that you have to unpack. That's our human nature, I think, to hang on, to protect ourselves. Yeah. And I mean, I would never understand that of a colored person, but I would think of, how could there not be trauma around that? How could that not exist?
Yeah. And you know what? And for the stigma for the Black community, I'm going to be honest, because I don't know why we stereotype having freaking help, like mental health. But for some reason, I'm thinking maybe a lot of, let's just go back to, I guess, maybe slavery days, or, after, post-slavery or something, but the Black people just, with the privacy and not telling folks what your business is. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I honestly don't know why the heck people stigmatize having therapy, because it is something we need, and it's easier to talk about our issues to strangers anyways, because then they can offer, points on life that you probably hadn't thought of, because when you're in it, you're too close to it to see, everything else that is actually happening, or why you even built up to this point. But someone on the outside looking in, it's easier for them to take what you've provided and unpack that and give you a different perspective on life, to say, wow, did you ever think that maybe this happened because of that? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. And we do, as a people, we need to find coaches or therapists, life strategists, whatever, to help us, because the same way as a former athlete, the same way athletes train on a daily, monthly, yearly basis for optimal achievements, right? Your brain is a muscle. You should want to protect your brain.
Absolutely.
That's mental health. Yeah. So we need it. We definitely.
I think people need to embrace that therapy, anything like that, where it's just about you. That's a luxury. That's a privilege. That like to sit there and really just
think about ourselves all the time.
Right? Yeah. None of us do. And I will say that's one cultural through line. Yeah. I think every situation, I mean, white people are in all the therapy. Maybe that's one thing we can help destigmatize. I don't know if that's good or bad, but actually even that, I think there's stigma there. Like when I go to my parents, I'm like, you could talk to someone, they'd be like, oh, what are you saying? I'm like, okay. Like, can we have some? Yeah. And I'm like, yes, actually I am.
Stigma is. It's being branded crazy.
It is. I know. And that's a heavy word to lay down, but everyone's family has some crazy in it. Like, I don't care who you are.
Right. Just being honest.
Go to anyone's holiday situation, whatever you celebrate, and certain aunt comes, uncle, cousin, like someone has that human in some side of the family that's just the most. And, I mean, it might be me, but, it is. Well, I want to be sensitive to your time. I really appreciate your time and energy. There's so much, I mean, it's such a heavy conversation, and just like the therapy and human and individual evolution, I hope these conversations happen. I'm so glad to hear that you're amongst all these other accolades. You're a podcaster, so your voice is out there. I think it's deeply powerful. And now you're influencing our younger generation in addition to being a mom with your little human. Are there any parting words that you want to leave us with?
Yes. I want to talk to white people and just ask you, how did you feel when you saw what happened last Wednesday? Is there something you can do about your own white privilege? Have your perspective changed about who are protesters and who are thugs, or who are domestic terrorists from what happened on Wednesday? I just want to sit that in white America's lap. And for Black people, I want to say to you that what happened Wednesday, number one, it isn't our fight. That's number one, that it is not our fight. But is there a way that you can start to heal yourself? And maybe starting that process is what we talked about with Kristen, is through therapy, finding a way to heal yourself, starting by healing your own family, and then reaching out to heal your community, finding different resources that you can put back into the community, because we all know that we're stronger and better together. And so I'm so honored that Kristen invited me on to Turmeric and Tequila. I mean, this has been so exciting, and I'm glad you allowed me to come on here and just, speak my truth.
Hey, I meant, no, my pleasure. And I have a deep space of gratitude for you, your mission, you as a human. Just you being yourself, let alone being on the mic and what you do. I said this to one of my friends. I think simply out of everything we saw Wednesday, I think the good people in this world, regardless of how you look or how you identify or anything, will rise to find a way to continue to do better in their own way. Like I think that the good humans
top always rises to the top.
Yes.
It always does. But the only problem is to rise to the top. We need more people who are going to stand together to drown out the minority negative. Period.
Yes. And that minority will always get the front page, the most news and what have you. I did want to know if people are open to therapy. I'm by no means a doctor or a lawyer, but we got one. There's dig into it because there's things now you can do on apps so you don't have to be like in front of somebody.
All kind of stuff now.
Yeah, there's groups, there's hotlines you can call. I mean, look into multitude therapies, exercise, group coffee, or I don't know, but I'm with you. I think that self-care and that self-awareness, I really do think that is step one for everyone.
Everything.
And starting to see and address your own truths. Where do we find you? Give us all the books, the legs.
Y'all can find me so many different places. I want to start with JoJo's Legal Adventures because if you are looking for anything legal related for kids, this is your only resource. And I'm not talking about like teenagers, kids, legit kids. Go to jojoslegaladventures.com. That's the website. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at JoJo's Legal Adventures. For What Are You Sporting About, which is my brand, supporting, educating, and motivating professional athletes in business to their next level, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at What Are You Sporting About. And for my firm, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you can follow us at SL DeBarros Law. That is the place where I represent individual 6- and 7-figure businesses and professional athletes in business through business, employment, sports, and entertainment. So holla at your girl.
What? Varsity humans, everybody raise your game. Did you hear that list? You're out here.
Girl.
I love it, man. I hope you get some sleep at some point.
Baby, let me tell you, I already told you, like, I stress myself out because I fear dying and not having achieved anything. I know it seems so weird. It's like, why are you trying to rush yourself in the grave? And I promise I'm not.
Just read your LinkedIn page every once a month and you know that you have shit that's you're documenting. You could take a load off. Holy cow.
Hey, I don't know what to say.
God bless your husband, because he's got to be like, vacation time, please. Like, let's breathe.
Every time I ask him to read something, look at something, listen to something, he's like,
Dude,
he must be. What's that about now? Yeah.
He must be a fit, patient human, which God bless.
He really is.
Well, I appreciate you. Please keep in touch. And I say this, if there's any way, I'm so here for all my fellow athletes, my fellow podcasters. I adore this community. If there's any way I can help your cause or promote or whatever, I think
have you on my podcast.
Let's do it. I'll commit. Yeah, you let me know when.
Okay.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.